Well, folks, we made it to season 7. Welcome to the Vulnerability Time podcast. I am your host, Josias Abriel, and published author. Speaking of published author, before the episode starts, make sure to go check out my books. They're available on Amazon, and the link is in the episode description below. Go ahead, get you some healing. One's a poetry book about overcoming pain and trauma and stuff like that, and then the other one's a self-awareness interactive journal notebook. So get you some healing. You're worth it. Another thing that you're worth all the love in the world. You're worth all the healing in the world, and I'm glad that you're here with us today to heal together. You are loved, you are valuable. This is your sign. Alrighty, enjoy the episode. Bye, folks. Okay,
My
folks.
favorite way of doing it.
Right, exactly. So, folks, I was just telling Tigirlla, I was like, we're just gonna jump right into it because I already have a pre-recorded intro, so we're just gonna jump right into it. And Tigirlla said that's her favorite way of doing it. I was like, exactly. Okay. Folks, I'm sure you can tell by the title what we'll be talking about. So we'll be talking about reclaiming wildness.
Yes.
Um, and grief that only nature could hold, and the unexpected healing that comes when you finally let a plant show you the truth that you've been hiding from, and what that means. But before we get into that, Tigria,
Yep.
welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited about being here.
Yay. Okay, and so tell us a little bit about you before we get into our topics.
Yeah. So I have a really unusual background. So I'll just kind of like give a little bit of pieces here and there, and then I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. I happen to live in one of the largest spiritual communities of the world. It's a place called Damanhur. It's in northern Italy. And we're a community that's actually, we're celebrating our 50th year this year. And we're an esoteric community. So this is a place that really brings together spirituality and technology and science and all these different pieces. I've heard it I used to call it Oz, I mean Hogwarts for adults, but I think everybody now, I had a friend of mine who was just recently here who was like, I think I've landed in Oz, and that's really what it's like. This is like the best that Oz has to offer.
Mm.
And my background to get here kind of went through many different stages. I used to work at Microsoft, so I have like a tech and an engineering background. I'm actually a music engineer, so I have this artistic background. I've been teaching esoteric studies for many different years. And here in Damanhur, I discovered what has become like my all-encompassing passion, which is the world of plants and plants as mentors, plants as models, plants as a measure and as an understanding how that we can collaborate with the natural world. So really understanding that we are beings of nature and that many of the different kind of traumas that we have, I say that they are come from the original trauma, which is the separation from
Mm.
nature. When we all of a sudden stopped thinking of ourselves as being of nature, we started seeing things as right or wrong when nature doesn't have right or wrong. Nature
Mhm.
has when is this appropriate to use and when is it not appropriate to use. So it's
Mhm.
it's very much a different way of looking at the world. So
Mm.
that's kind of me in a nutshell. More than anything, I am a life coach and a mentor, and I really help people kind of get back to that natural way of being.
Yes, so you mentioned the word esoteric. What does that
Mhm.
mean?
So, esoteric is really about the hidden knowledge of the universe.
Mm.
So, for many different reasons, there has been knowledge that has been kept
Mhm.
with a certain, let's just say, groupings of
Yes.
people over the
Mhm.
years, right? It leaks out in our mythologies, in our legends, in the
Mhm.
stories that we hear as children, but it has a power that makes it difficult to just tell you directly, either because some people, again, the conditioning, they don't want to believe it, or also because it holds a series of powers that you have to work on yourself in order to get to. I'll give you a great example, right? People always talk about Atlantis. right? Whether you believe in Atlantis or not, what we can learn from Atlantis and what we can learn from many of the ancient civilizations is the fact that you have, whether we're talking about Egyptians, whether we're talking about Atlanteans, there's so many others. But what we learn is that with incredible amount of knowledge, power, and even technology, if you haven't done the work on yourself, if you haven't gotten to a place where you are comfortable with who you are, where you accept yourself and you learn how to use all your strengths, in the end, you'll destroy civilization on a micro scale, whether you're talking about an entire society like Atlantis or Egyptians or any of it, or on a minor scale, and I'm talking about my own family dynamics or my friends, right? With the amount of technology that there is out there, and there's been technology, spiritual technology, all kinds of technology throughout the years, having a lot of technology isn't really unique. But if you don't understand yourself and your mission, your purpose, why are you here in this on this planet? What are you come to do? Then you're just going to make a mess of things.
Mhm,
And not on purpose, but just by sheer ignorance, right? You're
mhm,
just going to make a mess of things.
mhm.
And so esoteric knowledge really is the foundation upon which all of this lies and the understanding the mysteries of the universe. And how is it that we can use that as both an individual, like my own work, but also as a collective?
Right, right. Oh, I love that. When I hear the word collective, that reminds me of collective consciousness rising
Mhm.
and things like that. Um, where you're at, where you're living at, it reminds me of it's like a glimpse of new earth.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, absolutely. I
mm,
mean, the thing about living here that I really love, so as I said, I've been teaching esoteric studies for many years,
mhm,
and when I finally got to Damanhur 15 years ago, the thing that drew me in was that collective. The idea that and the understanding that yes, there's a little bit I can do on my own, but if I really want to evolve, if I want to
mhm.
further humanity, which is what we see in the natural world as well, you need a community. You need to be part of an ecosystem. You need to be part of something greater, in part because that acts as your mirrors. It gives you a measure, an understanding. When you see somebody else do something, even if it bothers you, you look at them and you're like, why does that bother me? And it could very well because it's a trauma or something that is about myself, but it also could be because it's helping me see my
Mhm,
values in action.
mhm,
So having others is one part I have people to create with, and we can always do more. You know how it is, the how is it, the group is more than the sum of its parts.
mhm,
But also it helps me give me kind of boundaries and understandings, and I get to see values and actions, and I get to understand my own, and I get to see mirrors, because oftentimes what bothers me is usually the things that bother me about myself. And so I get to see mirrors of that in others. And even in nature, the species that have evolved the fastest have always evolved in conjunction with other species. And that's really what a community of both, and in Damanhur, it's a community that's both human as well as more than human. We have all kinds of different beings that we work with, and this really helps me get to another level. It also means being extremely vulnerable, being very much always with other people around me. That
mhm.
doesn't mean I don't have my private time. Definitely have my
Right,
private time. But
right.
my point being is the more I allow those people to touch my life, the faster I evolve. If I
Mhm,
keep myself
mhm,
closed off, then you might as well just stay at home in your little box and hide inside of some phone or something like that. So I love the fact that here I'm forced to kind of take myself out and stretch myself and make mistakes, but we're all here for the
mhm.
same mission, so it's okay. It's
Yeah.
it's part of the process.
It's part of the process. I love that. Yes, I love that, communal. Because I always preach it, community is so important. It's so
So
important.
important.
Um, okay, so thank you for that background. So I something that I really wanna jump into, I'm really excited to hear, I've been looking forward to this, is reclaiming wildness after
Mhm.
decades of overachievement. What is why that topic? Like, what is your story and your journey with that? How's that shown up in your world?
Yeah, so I'm one of these people that, the ones that get labeled too much,
Mm,
those
same.
too much.
Same. Right
Too
here.
much. Too much emotion, too many
Mhm.
thoughts, too much in every direction. And of course, in our current society, with again, going back to the conditioning, the separation from nature, all these different aspects, that has been kind of labeled as something negative, something
Mhm.
that then you're supposed to wind yourself down, you're supposed to
Mhm.
constrain yourself. When in reality, I have found through this journey, especially working closely with plants, that too much is just about not mastering parts of myself. So, therefore, I don't necessarily know how they fit into the overall ecosystem. So I might let that part of myself out in the wrong moments, or more importantly, I don't know how to use it for the greater good.
Mhm.
And so I look to suppress it. I look to control it. My wildness is my natural way of being. And if that means that I am somebody who feels deeply, it means that I grieve for 6 months when somebody else might grieve for a month.
Mhm.
If it means that I cry at the drop of the hat, it doesn't matter because all of that is the way that my body processes information,
Mhm.
knowledge, wisdom, and everything. So if instead I look at it as, wait a minute, how am I supposed to express this? In other words, what is my actual true natural expression? Not the conditioned responses that somebody tells you, not the
Mhm.
suppression that society might think about, but more of if I was to believe and truly believe that this is useful, how is this useful? An example I give all the time in my own journey was I'm I'm extremely critical. Like I can see flaws, I can see little defects in things. I'm very attuned to what is out of sync. Now, if that comes from a place of if when I go to express it, I express it from a place of fear or jealousy or thinking that something is wrong, of course it's going to come out harsh, maybe even mean, judgmental, all of those words. But if instead I think of it as something that allows the piece that I'm working on to come out better,
Mhm.
and I literally sit within myself and I say, okay, if there's a flaw in this project that I'm working on, or if I see somebody's clothing that maybe has a rip in it, I don't know, something even silly that can be,
Mhm.
how do I use that to show to help this evolve into something better? And if I'm thinking about it in like, "Ugh, what are they thinking? What's wrong with me?" Because that means that I prefer to be right rather than see the project go forward and be
Mm.
successful. So I have to also check in with myself in these pieces. So your wildness and really expressing your wildness is about truly believing that in an ecosystem, every part of you can be useful.
Mm.
It's about how you use it, and that also means getting super comfortable with making people uncomfortable,
Mhm.
because sometimes my biggest power is that, for example, maybe I'm gonna cry in public
Mhm.
and, people are gonna feel uncomfortable, but that
Mhm.
means they're not in touch with their feelings, so I'm being a mirror to them. And I'm allowing them to feel something that they themselves are not allowing themselves to feel.
Mhm.
So I don't have to feel bad about the fact that I don't know, blow up a project if in that blowing up, the intention is creation. And so therefore, I'm actually being that catalyst for people. So off that, really stepping into your wildness is about understanding your archetype and understanding how you're supposed to use these pieces, not suppressing them so that you can really master them and accept that they have their beautiful pieces and they have their pieces where, again, they blow something up.
Yes. That was so well, that was just first off, I completely am for everything that you said. I say the exact same thing, um, just differently. And
Mhm.
I want you to know that hearing you speak, first off, I heard myself a lot, and it was nice to know, like, oh my gosh, someone else feels and thinks the same.
Yeah.
Um, but I want you to know I really needed that encouragement.
Mm.
I really needed that encouragement. Like, yeah. So thank you so much. for
My
sharing
look,
that.
that's exactly the reason why we all need to speak up. Because
Exactly.
when I first came to Dom and Her, I used to work on, I was invited to come to the community, which is something that really has only happened one other time. And I was invited to come to the community to help kind of build up social media strategy and stuff like that. And a lot of Dom and Herians, of course, being a community, they were like, why do we need social media? And I was like, because we need to be a beacon of hope.
Mm,
We need to give people, we need to show who we truly are, not necessarily only for ourselves, but because there are so many people out there that don't even know this is possible.
yeah.
They have this longing in their heart, like you just said, I feel it, I know it, but I don't know how to express it, or I don't know where it is, or I don't know how to find these people. And also being part of your wildness and really embracing it for those that it's part of their mission, because there are those that instead are introverted, right? They do it in a completely different way. But for those of us that really feel this, we need to speak that truth because others need to hear it and others need to know I resonate with that and I want to connect into that in whatever way you connect. I am super happy when anybody creates community, whether it's coming to Dom and Her or listening to a podcast on a regular basis or joining an online community or going to their local community center. The most important thing is share and speak in whatever feels right for you. Introverted, extroverted, it doesn't matter because that is the beacon of hope we all need.
Love that. I love that. That was so very well put, very well articulated. Um, I'm speechless because I'm soaking it in and letting it sit,
Mhm.
with me. And I really, really, really do appreciate you for that because I'm about to start back in my PhD program. My summer break is ending, and so you know, I needed to hear that. Let's just say, like, I really needed to hear that, going into this. So going back into it. So thank you so much. Um,
Aw. Wait, I have a question for you. What are you doing your
please,
PhD in?
sociology.
I love you already. I'm
Yes.
see, now it's like now you're touching me. I've always dreamed of a PhD, but it's one of those things I haven't gotten there yet.
Mm,
And I play around in the realms of like sociology, psychology, plant humanities, and everything. I
mm.
know it'll come together at some point, but I just
Yes.
love it when I hear people that are doing PhD programs. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. After this, I plan on, like, if I'm still here, I plan on, um, getting even more in touch with nature, like, um, living, like my actions, I don't know, like getting even more in touch, like for example, like getting more in touch with nature, getting more in touch with, even more higher self, than I
Mhm.
already do because I do it a lot, but I even more, like this time
Right.
I will be able to fully like focus as much as I can. Um, I also want to learn light language, things like that. Like I want to learn more about just things in the more like new earth realm. Like I
Right.
just want my
Well,
actions to also receive that because right now it's just my thoughts, it's just what I learn on my free time, it's I reflect back on my near death experience and being on the other
mm,
side, and what I learned on the other side, soul contracts and incarnation and reincarnation and living on other planets, living on other places, like, things like that. Like, I love it all, but I want my actions as well to experience that realm, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
It makes perfect sense. One of the things that I love about living in Dumb and Her, and especially as a multi-potentialite like you are, as somebody who has lots and lots of different passions, is being able to see a society that allows or makes space to weave all of those different things together. So, for example, my master's is in it's called Vegetal Future, it's plants, social innovation, and
Mm,
design. So, I did, for example, a lot of sociology in the built environment, right? And I found that thinking in that way, right, the idea of what is the nudge, how is it that we move society, and what are all these different principles, helped me put into practice many of the different aspects that I had been learning for years as a Kabbalist in in my astral travels, in my other work. And so I think what we're getting, especially through conversations like this, and the understanding that all of these pieces can weave together. Right? There isn't that harsh separation that society keeps telling us exists between the academic world over here and like technology over there and science over there. It's all bull. None of that exists. All of
right,
these
right.
pieces help us better understand the world in which we live in and how I'm supposed to live in it. And so I love the idea of, like, as you were saying, right? Here you are studying sociology, which has this, big impact in human society. But for example, ecology really is just natural sociology and
Mm,
natural relationships. That's what ecology
mhm,
is. And so the connection with the natural world, if will come into play if you allow it to come into play,
mhm,
because you'll start to see how everything from how we nudge people to get better in touch with their body, how we build different structures, or how we create social construct and social innovations. For example, I studied biomimicry, which is bio-inspired design for social innovation,
mhm.
and it was fascinating to create projects for, like, I don't know, post-hurricane education in a
Okay.
place like one of the kind of like projects that we were working on to kind of develop the concept for was the idea of post hurricane education, especially for young girls. And we were mimicking things like beavers, coming into the idea of how is it that beavers teach their young? How does a pine tree create a safe space? How does, something like stigmergy, which is an element of how do I feel and I can pick up from somebody's trace and continue on the work, even if I don't know the work that they did, but I feel connected to it. Like, there's all these
Mm,
elements of nature that we can weave in to the way that we do things that in reality feel much more a part of who we are,
yeah.
rather than our current way of doing things that jams in with guilt and conditioning and discipline. God, I hate that word.
Mm, mhm.
Discipline that doesn't really work for anybody who has a multi-passionate mind. Forget the discipline thing. It's not
Right,
there for you.
right.
Like, you
I
can't force
agree.
these things into being. You can do it
Mhm,
for a short period of term, but you're miserable after a while. And
mm,
so I feel like we're getting finally to the point where there's more information out there. Where does my light language actually help me study better or help me better understand this
mm.
human construct, because it's coming in from a different angle. And so therefore I can reach it without all these layers of
Right.
shoulds and coulds and woulds and blah, 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 but instead I
Mhm.
can get to its core. So you keep studying all those pieces. You let them all come out.
That's right. I love that. Something really interesting that I like that you mentioned. So you mentioned plants, right?
Mhm.
And like that was part of your master study. So I'm curious to know, what is your like what drives your passion for plants? And then I also have that question of like grief that only nature could hold. But first I
Mhm.
want to know like where did your passion for plants start? Has it always been a thing that developed, did that awaken?
It was
What's
an
the
awakening. It was a plant reawakening
Mm,
that happened very, like,
yeah.
it was, and it came through language to a certain extent, through music more than anything.
Oh.
And the thing I love about working with plants is, first of all, plants are masters in relationships, and in
Mm,
many, many different relationships that we as humans have lost the archetypes of. We think of relationships as, like, transactional,
Mm.
or,
Mhm.
mother, parent child, we think of
Mm.
love, in the very strict sense, and most of that time possessive love. We think about a whole series of
Mhm.
small constructs. But if you look at an ecosystem,
Mm.
right? If you look at even just go outside and sit in the grass and stare at the grass, there has to be so many different kinds of relationships in order for one little patch, one, meter by meter, square meter area having so many different kinds of species of plants, and then all the animals and, every kind of insect and such that they call in. And so, one thing that really attracts me is this concept of how do I create an ecosystem? How do I become part of a whole while still remaining true to my own identity? Right? A tree is always, right in front of me is Gary the silver fir, and Gary the silver fir is always a silver fir. But silver fir, adapts when the swallows are around, changes when it's winter, changes when it's summer, like, there's so many different components, knows when to drop a branch, like, there's so many different kinds of relationships that are being built there. So that was one piece that always has that from the moment I started working with plants fascinated me. 2, the
Mm.
logic that we humans have is so much conditioned by right, wrong, and all these different norms,
Mhm.
and yet and most of that time is about controlling the human being, where in an ecosystem, there's a lot more of experimentation, a lot more of let me try this, and mutations. We as humans have kind of stunted our growth to a certain extent, right? If I have 10, if I'm born with 10 toes and 10 fingers, that's normal. But if
Mm.
I have 11, something is wrong with me and something has to be changed.
Exactly.
But in a plant, you might have a plant that's growing with a certain leaf, size, and then
Exactly.
all of a sudden the plant is getting a little bit less light, so the leaf starts to get wider and the leaf starts to grow lower and moves in a different direction, and we think that that's wonderful. So why is it that when I evolve maybe traits that don't quote unquote look normal,
Mhm.
why is it that I think of myself as an abomination, as something is wrong with me,
Mhm.
as something that is a disease or a, malformation, when instead a plant does it,
Mhm.
considered creative, evolutive, moving towards new solutions,
Mhm.
all these different aspects. And I think we need to reconquer these. These are all traits that are natural parts of who we are, and that we have not allowed ourselves in about 150,000 years to evolve anymore.
Right.
And I fear that humanity won't be able to weather the changes that are happening because we don't allow our bodies to modify themselves into
Yeah.
what might be necessary. Maybe my skin needs to change color because there's going to be more sun. Maybe I need to absorb water in a different way because we're going to have more drought.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to be more resilient to other aspects of the changes that are coming, and maybe I need to construct things differently
Yeah.
in order to better interact with the
Mhm.
world around me and be more embedded. So all of these things, plants in a very gentle, non-judgmental way help us arrive through presence. Because the other thing that I love about plants, and then I'll stop because I could go on and
No,
on.
no, I'm listening. You are fine. You are doing fine.
Oh, another thing that I really, really love about plants is that
Mhm.
we humans have this thing that we think is an advantage, but in my opinion is a disadvantage, and they're
Mm.
called legs. We run
Mm.
away from everything. It is our model.
Mm.
Our model is when the going gets tough, get the hell out of Dodge. Like, just
Mm.
get out. Where plants being sessile, which means I move, but I'm rooted in place,
Mm.
have to think in a very different way. And what would happen if me as a human being, which is what I think about now living in community, if I have to deal with everything. So if you piss me off, I can't just run away from you and ignore you. I have to talk to you. I have to deal with it. I have to work it out because we're part of a community.
Yeah.
What if I couldn't run away from my boss or my problems or my fears or
Mhm.
all these things because again, I'm in that location. I need to make the best of that location. And
Mm.
so I feel like plants really help us to get out of the conditioning part of our human, step into the presence part of our
Ah.
plantness, And then from there, relook at humanity as my humanity and my animal side, because I am an animal, in a completely different way.
Wow. Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that. the universe has been telling me that. And so usually how I know it's the universe telling me is that when somehow, some way it gets confirmed through someone else.
Mhm. Ooh, I like
So
that.
yes, 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 because the universe knows. Sometimes I'm just like, I gotta make sure that it wasn't maybe just me thinking that, or I was like, and maybe it's higher self, but I wanna make sure that whatever I take in, that it's free of my biases, my
Right.
human incarnate biases from society. So that's why I just like um because yeah, that's why I'm just like, okay, like universe, higher self, higher powers that be, um the source within me, and I'm like, okay, like I don't want to overshadow,
Right.
and claim my biases as something from source and stuff like that. Something that's so bias ridden and limiting. I don't want to overshadow that and get the lines confused. So I told Universe years ago, I was like, okay, I was like, you got to work with me here. Like, because
Exactly.
yeah, so I was like, okay, so you confirm it. You have to confirm it through someone,
Mm.
and it's gotta be. I have not. It could, and yeah. So let's just say yes.
Well,
So
and you
thank
know what I
you.
love about what you just said is the
Yeah.
fact of that is the ultimate, like, I am yes, universe, you have a series of knowledge because you can see things that I maybe can't see. But at the same time, I, as an individual, also have a series of powers. So I'm working with you. I'm not just, so when you show me something, here's what I need. And I think that that's a great example of everything that we're talking about, which is really stepping out and being able to say, this is what I need. And the universe saying, okay, I'm going to help you reinforce your own sense of, of truth, of inner knowing and all these pieces. For now, while you're in this testing ground, I will send you confirmations. And then there's going to come a point where you're not going to need it anymore because you're going to be able to hear it for yourself.
Exactly.
And it's that partnership. And that's what I love. I love that we actually have the opportunity to create these partnerships with the more than human world, whether we're talking about divinities or we're talking about, plants or we're talking about insects. The more than human world has a series of information in part because of their, configuration, the amount of the time that they've been on this planet, the ability to enter into different realms, both physical and spiritual. And
Mhm.
so when we create these types of partnerships, we get so much more out of it. And that's another aspect of working with, for me, plants, but also, whether it's nature spirits or other kinds of beings, gives us the opportunity to enter into another form of logic, another form of seeing the world, and then to gather more information for our own work.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I received that. I receive everything that you just said. Thank you so much. I'm learning a lot from you. I'm really learning a lot from you, and I'm getting encouraged and confirmed. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Something that I want to also get into. Okay,
Mhm.
so grief that only nature could hold.
Right.
I don't even know what to like. I don't even know what to think. I never heard that together until I met you. And so I want to hear, what is that grief? How is that showing up in your world? What's your
Right.
journey with that?
Yeah, so this goes back a little bit to, in part, what we were talking about relating to wildness, and also the concept of this evolutive piece that I was saying,
Mhm,
which is to us, first of all, that grief is always bad. Grief is, yes, the grief process is good, but grief is usually because something bad happened.
mhm,
And that's not necessarily always the case in the natural world. Again, it could very well be that I'm evolving into something else,
mhm,
which means that what I was gets left behind, right? The whole concept of the butterfly and the caterpillar,
mhm,
right? As a caterpillar, I leave behind this world that I know. I leave behind this form. I might even have moments of, beauty, but also moments of pain. I have moments of isolation. There's all these natural cycles in that grieving process as I transform and evolve. But it is that process and allowing myself to be in that process, to be held in that process. And the trust, and this is, I think, the most important part is getting lost in grief when you know that at the end there will be a kind of transformation or an evolution that happens, allows you to really experience every step of the way, to
Mm,
really feel it, to let your emotions go through it with that deep knowing and trust that it's a process and that I'm going to get to something else. And this is where the natural world can really help us understand that grief is something to be lived. It is
mm,
something that has its own cycle and it has its own depth and it has its own knowledge. And we come out of it stronger because we've lived it, because we've allowed whatever had to come in that moment. And more importantly, which I think is one of the most important pieces and the most beautiful
write
pieces
that
of
down.
grief, it is the depth of understanding that the trust in self that I am going to end up someplace else, and that someplace else is gonna be amazing. Like, when you allow yourself to really be held by the natural world in that grief process, when you allow yourself to believe and understand that grief is a natural step along the way, you can go through and gain all of the knowledge, feel all the emotions, deep dive into it without constraining yourself, without holding back, without anything, so that by the time I reach the end of it and I step into whatever the next stage is, I have not only experienced it, but I've learned from it, I've embodied it, I've brought of it, and I've also metabolized it, which means, there might have been trauma in there might have been ugly things through it, but I metabolized it, and it's now a part of me in a way that is gonna serve me going forward. Hopefully that made sense.
Yes. Wow. Well, yes, that made sense. Oh my gosh. I am loving the way you articulate things and the perspectives that you bring. I am loving this. Really, like
Thank you.
honestly, like I've never heard it like that before. And
Aw,
hearing
thank
you
you.
say it, I'm just like, yep, yeah, that's a good point. That's right. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. Something that I wrote down that you had said, grief is to be lived, not left.
Mhm.
And so I love that. That is so, 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 so true. Okay, I have a question.
Shoot.
Do you know what star seeds are?
Yeah. I mean, depending on what your definition is, because everybody has slightly different ones.
Oh, do they really?
So, yeah. So tell me which definition we're.
So star seed, like as in that you come from a different, whether it's dimension, different planet, you incarnate
Yeah,
from somewhere else
absolutely.
higher. Are you a star seed?
So, here's a funny part, and I am, from everything I've ever been told and everything, to be honest, I've ever felt, I am what's considered a super old soul. Um,
Mm.
and, I had here's a funny story. So, I was sitting outside with a group of friends, and I had somebody who wrote a note, and like somebody who passed by and they wrote a note and they gave it to me and they just walked away. Never saw this person in my life, didn't know who they are, still don't know who they are. And it was along the lines, like, the note was something about like, you come from Polaris, and you're one of the first souls to ever incarnate. It was something about that. And I was like reading this going, okay, thanks. Like, it was just really interesting confirmation, like talking about the universe confirming something. I was like, well, I guess that's, yeah. So thanks. No idea who this person is. We were, we were just sitting outside having hanging out here in Domino, and they just walked by and gave me this. So that's
So
that's my
cool.
confirmation from the universe.
That is so cool. Yeah. Polarian star seeds are thought to be
Mhm.
among the first spiritual beings to incarnate on Earth from higher dimensions. So they're one of the first.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, how cool! Oh my
Yeah, I wrote
gosh.
it. I remember that I kept the little it's in one of my notebooks, like the little piece of paper. I was like, oh. At the time, to be honest, at the time, I had no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
I had heard it. Somebody else had like, others had said it to me in my kind of overall realm. I had always heard the whole idea of like you're an old soul, and I had heard Polaris spoken about in all these pieces. And I was just like, when I got that, I was like, I think it's time to finally embrace this. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's just time to say, okay.
That is so fabulous. Oh my gosh. It's always nice to meet a fellow starseed. I love that. Oh my gosh. So, sorry to get off topic. I am sorry.
There
Just
is no off
saying,
topic. The
it's
topic is whatever you want. It's your show.
yeah. Um, okay, so something that I want to get into. Okay, good. We still have time. Fabulous. Um, I wanted to make sure you get all the topics that you wanted to talk about. So, the unexpected healing that comes from um plant and the truth that
Mhm.
it shows, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it connects into everything we were just talking about, which
Yeah.
is the most powerful piece of working long term with a plant. So my work is mainly, like I said, as a life coach, and then I also do. I have an online community called the Naturally Conscious Community, and I built the Naturally Conscious Community because I wanted a place. Obviously, I live in community, so I'm able to kind of explore these topics in different ways all day long, every single day with the people that I live with and the projects that we work on in our, way of our spiritual path, all these different aspects. But we're not all in that environment. Sometimes we need a place that is safe. We need a place that I can feel open and comfortable. We need a place where we can meet others that act as those mirrors. So I created the Naturally Conscious Community because I really believe that this evolution that we're experiencing is it's a path. It's a life path to a certain extent. And I wanted a place where we could come on a regular basis rather than, let me just take this course or, let me just do this one activity. Sure, that helps move the needle a little bit, but we need that camaraderie. We need those mirrors. We need that long term. So many of my, for example, one on one clients, and what I love is working long term with somebody in order for you to really explore that part of yourself. Because what plants offer you is a new way of thinking about your life. It's about
Mm,
creating a living ecosystem where the people that are around me, I see myself and what is my role in this ecosystem. And there's lots of different ecosystems: my work ecosystem, my family ecosystem, my friend ecosystem, my
mm,
choir ecosystem, my church ecosystem. Like they're all different types of groups. But the more that I get to understand who I am, what are my different traits? What are my shadows? What are my light? What are the things that I use to create? What are the things I use to destroy? And I start to master their use. When do I use them? How much of them do I use? In what way do I use them? More that I get to understand this, then I can start to integrate these into my life. And this is where plants are excellent because you can work just the same as like the way that you can work with me. You can work one on one with a plant, like, Jana over here to my left, and I work on certain things
yeah.
where Noelle, the Christmas cactus, who's my current business partner, and I work on very different things. And so each one of these as individuals give me a vision, but also the togetherness in this household of the ecosystem that we've created between what is my role, what is the role of each one of these plants, what is the role of the humidity, the water, the pressure, the temperature, all of these different pieces teach me more things about myself and allow me to enter into my life in a different way. So, plants really give us an opportunity to see these different parts of myself and integrate them into a way where it becomes, I hate to say this because it's kind of a pun, but it becomes natural to use them, where I'm not thinking about it or worrying about it so much, but I'm just able to be who I need to be.
Mhm.
And this really, the path that we're on as humans is I am human, but that means I'm an animal.
Mhm.
Within me, there's a plantness,
Mhm.
right? There's a stillness and a presence. There's also a divineness. Like there's all of this. So I am an ecosystem in and of myself that I need to learn how to work on. And so plants
Yes.
can mirror the single ecosystem. They can mirror the group ecosystem. They can help me understand the relationships. They can really help me heal from that original trauma, which is the separation of my true nature.
Yeah.
I had somebody on my podcast the other day who called it her essential nature, and who can help me feel comfortable in my own skin, who can help me be happy with who I am and think of all of these different pieces of myself as just traits that I need to learn how to work with.
Yes. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we can learn a lot from nature and things
Oh
like
gosh,
that.
yeah.
You know, um, plants. So something really interesting that I just randomly wanted to share. So ever since my like the more awakened I become, the more I start to just love and have like a more tender care for nature
Mhm.
and plants. But something more specific that happened when I was 15. So 15, when I was 15, that's when I had my near death experience and I died and got to go on the other side. And plants there are plants that are colors that we don't have on this earth. There are plants that I've seen on this earth, but there are plants that I have not seen on this earth. But there's two things that I thought was pretty cool is how there's no judgment of, oh, this plan is prettier than this plan. It was just everything is just beautiful. So of course I was outside of these earth limitations, or not earth, the human incarnate limitations, and so that was really cool. But another thing was the plants there, I can't explain it any better. So I'm just gonna try my best. The plants there, it's like they're so conscious of you and they love you and you can feel that they love you. You can feel it. And so coming back to life, being brought back to life by, a being from the other side, being brought back to life, it it started to slowly change how I view plants, because at first I just would view them as just something that's just there, you know,
Right.
and now I just have a different, and over the years, just a bigger appreciation has grown for plants. Um,
Mhm.
so yes, I know I'm gonna become a crazy plant person, a crazy plant lady. This semester, this coming semester, that is my plan to buy a bunch of plants and stuff like that. But I just think that that's really cool. Um, and so I'm just like, yeah, like plants here, they are alive, they're
Yep.
they're alive, and I just saw them more so as just that they're just there, not necessarily that there's more to them. And so hearing you speak about even more that we can learn from them,
Yep.
I think that that's so beautiful, and I really appreciate you sharing that. Want to
Yeah, and I love what you just said because I was part of a research group. So here in Dom and Her, we have different kinds of research groups that we create
Yeah.
to work on different kind of spiritual research. And
Mhm.
I was in a group that was connected obviously to plants, and we were each exploring different elements of a kind of single relationship with a given plant. So I was working on elements of my subtle body, of my aura. Other people were working on different things. And it was really interesting because for a year, we spent each one of us spent a fair amount of time working with one single plant. Mine, it was this one here. I lovingly call no name Dracaena,
Oh,
and this one, and it was interesting because in the end of that year, when we were trying, first, let me just say the not putting knowing how to put into words, understand, hence why I have a writing and creativity group, because sometimes drawing, creative writing, poetry, it's better than trying to
right,
describe a
right,
series of things that, like you just said,
right.
we don't really have in the world of form yet, or
Mhm,
we don't have in this realm. And
mhm,
so we're trying to like feel our way into it rather than
right.
trying to describe it. But this piece
Mhm,
that you just mentioned was funny because it was, well, funny in the sense of interesting, confirmation, because as we were sharing through and we were writing our thesis at the very end of our research year, in the end, what we all ended up getting to was that unconditional love. And I felt so silly because I'm not a like, oh, love, love, peace and love type of
mhm,
person. I love like different realms and my science and my spirituality and all these pieces, but I'm not just usually one that kind of ends in let's all love each other.
mhm,
But
mhm,
gosh darn it, if we all ended up in the exact same place, each one of us working with one plant in that intense way for a
mhm.
year of like deep listening and deep relationship. And we all ended up in that place of like, I just feel unconditional love.
Yes.
All of us. All of us. And
Mhm,
it was fascinating to me because I was like, that's really it. It's about that non-judgment, that place of beingness, that part of presence. It's that part of I love myself. And so I see going back to the beauty that you mentioned from a Kabbalistic perspective, that center part, what we call that heart center Tiferet, is the sephira of beauty.
mhm,
Because when I am in that place of unconditional love,
mhm.
everything is beautiful,
Everything.
because everything in its own way, in its own happenstance, it
Yes.
just all finds its way into a form of beauty.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. That gives me chills. That's so
Mm.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, yes. Ah, so we are running out of time. But no, 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 that's not. We still have we have like 9 minutes, so we're good. We're good,
Okay.
or 7 minutes, so we're good. This is a fabulous wrapping up point.
Yeah.
Um, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for spreading awareness and enlightenment. And thank you for spreading light and helping raise the collective conscious. Thank you for that. Seriously,
Thank
thank you
you.
for that. That's my alarm for the next meeting. But thank you for that. Your episode will be released tonight. Um,
Woo!
yeah, this is yeah, it needs to be. This is a very, very beautiful episode. I'm so excited to release this. So I'll be reaching out to you later on the day and letting you know,
Perfect.
hey, your episode has been released. Here's the
Wonderful.
link for it. Um, Also, if there's anything you would like to promote, send it. So, folks, check the episode description below because
Yeah.
Tigirlla also has a podcast and other things. So, check it out in the episode description below. We love to support over here. Alrighty. Okay. So thank you so much. Folks,
Thank you.
yes. And folks, I like to leave with a little challenge. Today we're gonna do a little different challenge. Love a plant today.
Yes.
Yes, love a plant today. I don't care if that's just watering it. I don't care if that's just looking at it and admiring it as just all just beauty. Touch a
Mhm.
tree today. Do love a plant today. Even if it doesn't like do nothing for you, still do it. It's the action, the action. You're showing that action of love.
I
Yes. So,
love it.
yes, I love that. No, seriously, folks, do that challenge today. I'm gonna go do that after these I have like 4 other meetings back to back to back, but after that, I'm gonna go do I'm gonna go do that because that's amazing. But okay, send me those
Thank
links.
you. I will. I'll send it
And
to you.
I'll put it in the episode description below.
Thank
Alrighty,
you.
bye folks.
Bye.